Hey guys, Sleepy Girl here, recording my testimony. I'm going to share some key points in my life, and I'm going to tell you that Jesus is the righteous way of living, and that God loves you, and He's just waiting for you to open your heart to Him. And if you're a Christ follower, then stick with it, because God works. So I'm going to start with my mom, who was the main spiritual influence in our life, in my family's lives growing up. She's been in love with Jesus since she was like 5 years old. And my dad struggled with his spirituality growing up, and he was rough on us kids. So growing up with him, I wasn't close to him. So, I had my daddy issues. And when I became a teenager, I was really clingy in my relationship. And I lost my virginity at 14. And I had about 3 relationships when I was a teenager. And I thought that with each one, I was going to marry each one of them, and spend the rest of my life with them. But, that didn't work. But I would also drink and smoke weed, and when I was really depressed, I would cut myself. I would cling to God in my most needy moments, when I was really feeling down. I wasn't living for Him, obviously, because I was sinning. But when I was 17, I was attending a church called Daybreak, and I had gotten baptized for the first time. As a young kid, when I was 7 years old, I had asked Jesus to come into my heart, but I was never really at least shown how to live for God. So 17, I got baptized for the first time, but I fell back into sin. And 2 years later, when my parents were getting a divorce, I met my husband, and he's an unbeliever. But at the time, I didn't care. I just wanted some stability in my life. And a month after we were dating, we started trying to conceive, and we did 5 months later, our son. And about a year and a half after that, the next year we had gotten married, and then in 2008 we had our daughter. And about 2009, we were having some, marital problems, and I began to party a lot, going out quite often. Maybe at most would be like 3 times a week, maybe 4, but it was so much that, I would get easily frustrated with the kids and my husband, and all I wanted to do was just go out. We considered a divorce twice. I had, last year, I had an affair. And all the while, I was still attending church. But I was like a hypocritical Christian, I was trying to lead that double life, like going to church and pretending to be a good Christian and hey, yeah, I'm married, I got a family, everything's great, but then we go home, live out the week. I'd be sinning and, partying and all that, and it just wasn't working out. And it hurt me. It was really emotional considering a divorce. And of course, in my times of need, I was seeking out God. And the church that I was attending at the time was closing down, so I had to seek out one of their sister churches. And I had heard about The Edge, which I currently go to now. But when I first stepped in there for the first time, like, I felt spiritually awakened. And I knew that, I just felt like God was there in the room, and I felt like I had found God. So I fell in love with that church, and I realized this is the place where I'm really going to grow. So I started diving, for the first time ever, I started diving into the Bible. Started reading it every day, because the most that I read growing up was Psalm 23 and like a couple chapters of the first 2 chapters of Genesis, and that was it. But going to the edge, I started diving in spiritually. And the guy that I was having an affair with, an ex from high school, he told me that he was an unbeliever, so that's not what I was looking for, so I ended it. But I believe it was my sister's boyfriend that suggested that I should try the Love Dare. So I did, and halfway through, me and my husband realized that we both wanted to work it out. And, God was just with me the whole time. And I think my favorite verse is Psalm 37:4, and it says something like, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." And I believe those are like righteous desires, and I was desiring my husband to save my marriage. And when I gave my life to Christ, God granted me my marriage. Even though I do think the Love Dare works, it's not a book that helped me. It was Jesus Christ, and it was God that they saved my life, and they saved my marriage, and they saved my family. And all I'm hoping is that, sharing a little bit of my story, because there is so much more, but I hope that, seeing how I used to be in sin and how I turned my life around and I gave it to Christ, and I'm hoping that you can open up your heart and realize that this is the best way to live, and that God is real and He loves you, and you will have the best living if you live for Him. It won't be easy, because I still have my trials and I still have my low points, but it's so much better when you turn to God and when you live for Jesus. So I guess that concludes, and I made it under 10 minutes. But if you're watching this, no matter who you are, I love you, and I hope that you realize that Jesus is the one way to live your life righteously. So we're not all perfect. I'm not perfect, but Jesus is the answer. So thank you for watching. God bless y'all.